Okay, welcome to all of you, please. We have people still walking in the door. Pleasure to have everybody here. And of course, tonight, a delightful evening with Kevin Kuharic, who will be Louis.
We'll see.
Okay, and so anyway, I just want you to know that we have these wonderful things that are happening on these Friday nights that happen once a month at least. And because the community center does give us this particular building without any rent applied to it, that we have a can in the back to help defray some of the expenses. So then I give those, whatever's left, put in the can and give it to the community center to help continue letting us use this for the wonderful programs that our various people here in town and who are on the board put together for us all to enjoy. So it's called the Devil's Moon Series.
That's tomorrow night.
And that will be, well, excuse me, that is at the Georgetown Cultural Art. Okay,
That's tomorrow night.
and that's tomorrow night. Mhm.
And you want to come, it's going to be a good program.
Okay, and would you tell us more about the program, quick?
Sure. Devil Moon Series is a concert series that we put on once a month during the spring. This tomorrow night we have Wellington Bewlings. It's set up cabaret style, so you're at tables and candlelit. It's very romantic for those of you who miss Valentine's Day. And this week we have a wonderful jazz performer. She's about to go on a national tour. She's been written up by many publications about how wonderful she is. She's a person to keep an eye on for the future. We have a small venue with amazing acoustics in the 1874 school. Your ticket includes a charcuterie spread that we're doing and a free beverage down in the old school lounge. And the evening will prove to be something that you'll remember forever. You can talk to me and I'll let you know how to get tickets. It's on eventbrite.com. But if you need assistance or any special help, let me know. Thank you very much.
What a sales guy.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful treat to be in the old school. Truly it is. Because many of you people didn't realize that one time it was owned by our junk man. And he drove anything into the side of the walls so he could park vehicles there. Things were upside down, backwards, and so forth. And we're just lucky to have the school back being what it is. Thanks to Kevin and various other people here in town who have continued to maintain what we have there. So, anyway, back to this evening, we will have Christine, who is going to be recording all this for us, but we have our new chef here from the Hotel Dupuy, and so Lou, and so you're on.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Kevin Kuharic from Hotel de Paris Museum, Executive Director. I want to recognize my chairman, Mary Clark, and two of my staff members, Mary Spicer Jones, Susan Ballard, thank you for coming, and of course my husband, Paul Boat. And I get asked by young couples all the time, whether at work or out in public, what is the secret to a long relationship? And my advice is always the same: marry a cook. So I am not a cook. I'm just dressed as a cook tonight. And so if you can't see, I know I'm standing in the shadows. This is ratatouille on my head. And the white hat and the white apron come into play later in the presentation. All right, so let's get underway. So the name is Scrambled Brains, How Louis Dupuy Conquered Colorado Cuisine. I'm guessing that some of you are wondering, why scrambled brains, or what is scrambled brains? Well, scrambled brains are, you'll see these on the menu that's being passed around. So there's a 3-ring binder with a copy of the menu. Check that out. And also there is an appraisement bill from the estate of Louis Dupuy, and it has a lot of interesting items on that. Those were 2 key documents in researching all of this. So this is your training slide number 1. So everybody, if you have a device or a phone, pull it out now. And we're going to practice taking a picture of these recipes, because I promised 2 things in this presentation. 1 was recipes, and 2, a contest with a prize. Okay? So I know you're going to go straight home and make this evening. Right? And I want to thank Silver Brick Saloon for donating tonight's contest prize, which I have right here. And it is a gift card for food at Silver Brick. And so stick around till the end. Don't sneak out, because the contest comes right at the very end. That's how I'm going to keep this place full. What's that? Oh, sure. Let's go
By
back.
the way, the program will be on the library's YouTube channel in about another week. So if you can't, you can go out on the YouTube channel and get to this point in the program and stop it and read it off the screen. Just say.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe you'll get the prize.
Well, no,
No.
the prize doesn't relate to this.
And so the student in me wanted to let you know how I amassed the information for tonight. Physical evidence, and that would be the artifact collection in the building. And we estimate that we have about 90% of the original furnishings, amounting to about 7,000 items, which might be a conservative number, could be as many as 10,000. The appraisement bill for the estate of Louis Dupuy, that's circulating. It's a copy, so feel free to leaf through it. And then 2 copies of his menu, 2 different titles there: Extra Orders, Bill of Fare, Hotel de Paris Restaurant, Louis Dupuy, proprietor, Georgetown, Colorado, or also known as Order, Bill of Fare of the Hotel de Paris and Restaurant Dining Rooms for Ladies and Gentlemen, Louis Dupuy, proprietor. Louis, to our knowledge, did not have any recipes written down, which is not unusual. We'll get into that a little bit. And so the recipes that I'm presenting tonight are from the Boston Cooking School cookbook by Fannie Farmer, dating from 1896. And so these are things that you will see on Louis' menu. There may be a little bit of difference between how he prepared and how she prepared, but it's pretty much the same food at the same time. You're going to see a lot of advertisements and catalog pages, and then of course biographies of some of the celebrities who were cooking, celebrity chefs, not a new thing. So this is who I have determined were the influencers in Louis' life. Rosa Lewis, she was a cook, a restaurateur, and a hotelier. She was Cockney, and she wanted to social climb. And so she was employed as a young woman in a big house, working in the kitchen, acquiring skills, and then decided that she wanted to go out on her own. And she became the cook for kings, and some people say she slept with some of these kings. She was very refined in appearance. She had great table manners, but her gimmick was her Cockney accent, which she never played down. In fact, she played it up. And so this really launched her into fame. Auguste Escoffier, you probably know that name a little bit more. He was a chef and restaurateur of the Ritz Hotel in Paris, France. And so his angle was not social climbing, he was a philanthropist. In fact, he was very concerned about the living conditions, the health and welfare of kitchen workers, restaurant workers back of the house. And so he would give money to organizations that would help people have a decent life and also a respectful retirement. Fannie Farmer, who I mentioned just a moment ago, a cook and writer, and so we're using her recipes tonight. And Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. Louis was a fan of Kellogg. I would not say a devotee. He would cherry pick items that appeal to him out of writings by Kellogg, and those books are in our library at the hotel, the Dupuy Library. And then Dr. James Russell, who was a guest of Louis Dupuy's, and he was the president and dean of the Teachers College of Columbia University. And he's the one that first called Louis the father of domestic science in America. So Louis's 2 titles: best cook in the Colorado Territory, father of domestic science in America. Louis's life experiences influenced how he cooked. So he was born in France, lived there until he was 19, so that's the French flag on the bottom. But then at about the age of 20, he moved to London, England, and started working as a journalist. And the time in London really influenced him. Not only cooking styles, but also sauces. So one thing that Rosa Lewis did not like were sauces. So there's a difference between how Louis cooked and how Rosa cooked. She wanted the food to taste like what it was, steak to taste like steak, not to taste like A1 steak sauce, if you will, okay? Louis liked sauces, which was a little more French, but he blends these 2 cultures and his life experience into how he presents his food. He's also influenced, cameras out, by the 5 mother sauces. And so you'll see these on the menu. So we have bechamel, hollandaise, tomato, española, and white sauce. He also had secondary sauces, which we'll get into a little bit later. But this is sort of the basis for his cooking, and very French. When the last camera goes down, we'll advance. Okay. And so on the left is Dr. Kellogg's Man the Masterpiece. And I've read this book. It's quite long. It's 300 to 500 pages. But you can find it online at Google Books. And that's the best way to access it for free. That's how I read it. And then here's the cover of the Boston Cooking School Cookbook. We don't know if Louis was aware of this publication. We don't have it in our collection. But he's certainly cooking the same food that you would see in these pages. And that's also available on Google Books for free. His cooking techniques. I think most of you have been to the museum and you're familiar with our brick range. The brick range is a reconstruction. And so his brick range was removed in 1905 when the Burkholder family took over that property after Louis's death. Louis had a lot of brand loyalty. And so when he found a manufacturer that he liked, he would stick with them. And then a component of that is also going to be not a lot of choice of manufacturers. But usually he settles on a few companies and he keeps buying from them. So on the right, you'll see our icebox, and that is original to the building, dating from probably about 1878. It's from Buffalo, New York, from Jewett and Company, or we call it Jewett's. Still in business. They still make refrigerators. They found a niche market. They make refrigerators for the chilling of plasma in hospitals. Okay? But this is a cover of a Jewett's range a catalog. And so Louis's ranges were probably from Jewett's because he was already a good customer of theirs. We'll never know, since those were removed and disposed of, never to be seen again, but it's likely that it was a Jewett range just based on Louis's patterns. Since the original range is gone, we don't have any of the gridirons. And this is Louis's favorite type of cooking technique, broiling. Okay? Today we would call it grilling, all right? And so it is one of the healthier ways to cook because, of course, it's going to sear the outside of the meat to seal in the juices, and then fats will drip out too. And he was not only broiling meat, he served many, many steaks, but also vegetables. All right, so that's a 19th century example of a gridiron, which we do not have in the collection any longer. He also was cooking on the stovetop. This is called a flop griddle. And so he was making pancakes, and this was his brand, H.O. Pancake Flour. And then he was baking in a red brick-lined oven. So those were sort of the different things. He also fried, so you'll notice things like brain fritters and fried oysters on that menu. This pan, it could be the twin bread pan that you see at the top. It's very similar to the camp roast pan at the bottom. And remember, Louis was the best cook in the Colorado Territory, so before Colorado was a state, and the way he got that reputation was he was a camp cook. He was a camp cook and reporter at the same time. So this pan may have been on the back of his burro floret, which was a white burro. And you can see it's very similar to the pan in the illustration at the bottom, which came right out of Fannie Farmer's cookbook. And that's with a duck, and we know that Louis was serving duck. Something that sets Louis apart from Rosa and her social climbing and Auguste and his philanthropy, Louis was interested in sanitary science, and arguably he was a borderline germaphobe. And so I'm wearing a white apron, white hat tonight in his honor. This is how he dressed. He wanted to wear white because he wanted to know when the apron was soiled. His stove surface was white porcelain. He wanted to know when it was dirty so he could clean it. He had a laundry in the building. All of his linens were white so he could bleach them and sanitize them. And so the illustration in the center shows approximately how he would have been dressing, how he was known to dress. This catalog page here, he buys many, many things out of this one catalog. Again, this brand loyalty that he has. And so those aprons would be very similar to what he was wearing. And so he's doing something called scientific cookery. Examples of that, on the left, those are fish kettles. So this could be for making sauces, like a double boiler. It could be for poaching fishes. But you also see that we have some silverware in there. What do you think's going on? Speak up. Sterilization. You got it. So these are called demijohns. And what they would hold would be vinegar. So this one was probably white vinegar, which he probably used more of because he would pour water, white vinegar, and boil to sanitize the cutlery. He also was known to be quite a hand washer. And so that's why I think that potentially he was a germaphobe. We know that he bathed daily, and we know that he washed his hands all the time. This is one of our custom soaps. We have maybe 4 or 5 surviving bars of those. They're by James Kirk out of Chicago. The company is still in business. It's relocated to Kentucky. It's called Kirk Soaps. They do a lot of liquid soaps, and it's a woman-owned business now. Other things in the kitchen that would deal with health and sanitation, the zinc countertops. And so we have some farm tables in there with the zinc tops. It's a metal surface. It's sheet zinc. It's antimicrobial. So Louis is reading books about sanitation, health, science, and Kellogg's books, and he's learning about these different surfaces, and he's putting this knowledge to the test in his own business to protect people, to protect himself. This is a very worn copper bowl. Copper is also antimicrobial. This was recovered through archaeology out of one of the courtyards. That's why it has that condition. This is a garbage firkin. A firkin is an English measure. And this is where he would put his potato peelings, carrot peelings. He's trying to keep these away from pests. And then, as I mentioned, the laundry. So this is the former laundry back here, which is now our landing kitchen. But these appliances, the wringer, the mangle, the washer, and the shoe shine kit all would have been in that room. Also, the open table legs, fewer places for mice and rats to hide. Very few cabinets. In fact, the only cabinet to the floor is the refrigerator in there. His ingredient sources, where does he get this food? Georgetown is not known as a place of agriculture or ranching, just because of the topography, the weather, the wildlife, the wind, the arid conditions. Well, some of it was raised right on site. So this is what the hotel was like in 1881. So the annex was largely built. You see it was being used as sleeping rooms. This is the restaurant dining room. This is where the gift shop and the sample rooms are today. Here's the kitchen as it was until about 1887. It's kind of here now, but there's a little square room right here, and it says partly underground, and there's a doorway. So what's going on here is his kitchen was about half the size that we have today, and through a doorway next to the brick range, so the heat would come around the corner, that was a glass greenhouse. And so we had a Chinese gardener. We know him as John Tao. He was likely displaced by the race riot in Denver in 1880, where a white mob attacked the Chinese community, killed one Chinese man, looked young, and destroyed Denver's Chinatown, which is just now being reestablished. So it's likely that John came up to the mountains to get away from the trouble and to find more opportunity and safety. And so he was employed by Louis to manage this greenhouse, and he was raising herbs, spinach, and chard for use in the kitchen, and also ornamental flowers for the tables in the restaurant. Where John lived was in sleeping room number 1, right by the greenhouse. About 1887, Louis gets so busy with the restaurant, the kitchen is insufficient in size, so he then tears down the greenhouse, buries the debris, expands, and then establishes a laundry in here. And if John was still with us after the removal of the greenhouse, his duties likely would have been laundryman, which was typical of the Chinese in the West at that time. Louis also sourced the beef himself. So he was so successful, he purchased 173 acres in Grand County. He called the ranch Troublesome Creek. Grand County is an area known for ranching and also for hunting. So we have things like venison on the menu, likely hunted by Louis. And this is his brand 6 Diamond. Of course, we're in an area with trout. But trout might be scarce at times. So Louis' receipts show us that he also bought canned trout. So some was local, some was canned. And so he's relying on preservation, the canning and pickling, and the transportation to get it to Georgetown. Oops, sorry. There we go. And also, there was a local fish hatchery, Green Lake. So this is nearby. And California salmon was being farmed here, and it was being prepared and sold at Hotel de Paris. So locally sourced. And then, of course, the train, when that arrives in 1876 on August 1st, that gives him an opportunity to get to a bigger marketplace. And so this is why we start to see peas from Ohio, chewing gum from Michigan, mineral water from New York. So it's this transportation and this packaging that's solid and keeps the item safe, and the science to preserve that food. Back to brand loyalties. These are the biggies for him. Heinz. So if you've been to the hotel, you've seen many, many jars of Heinz, some empty, some never opened. So if you have a strong stomach, stop by. You can't have a taste. I think by now it's full of botulism. But Heinz was a big supplier for him. And so he sold India relish. We have many empty jars of India relish there. He was a big fan of the flavor of mustard, so that comes into many of his recipes. The vinegars, of course. And Lee and Perrins. Okay? So you can see the imagery there is of elegance, high-end dining, refinement. We're very lucky to have this original Lee and Perrins bottle with its glass stopper. And again, notice the imagery there, high-end, and also English. All right? So I have to believe that a lot of the food that he was using, Lee and Perrins, another one is Cross and Blackwell from London. I think this is his time spent. This is the experiences in his life that he carries forward. Tabasco. In fact, we have an unopened bottle of Tabasco pepper vinegar in the hotel. The product was only made for a 10-year period, 1868 to 1878. And so it dates from the very earliest days of the hotel. When Louis died, there were 4 of these bottles in the dining room, according to the appraisement bill that's circulating. 1 has survived, never been opened. And the Tabasco, of course, oysters, soups. Cross and Blackwell that I just mentioned out of London. So that is a bottle of shrimp essence there for flavoring. And again, pickled items. And so this is very important in a place that has long winters and no agriculture to speak of. Gordon and Dilworth, another brand that he had many things from. Campbell's. These are things that we have in our own pantry. So if you think that you are a lazy cook because you're opening jars and opening cans, don't think that. Louis Dupuy did it too. Durkee's, another brand that you might be familiar with. And then not only was he dealing with science and sanitary science and technology, he's also treating people like a doctor, all right? Things weren't regulated yet, all right? And so on that inventory list, you'll see bromo seltzer. What is it for? Headaches and hangovers. Well, that sounds kind of like Georgetown, doesn't it? And then he's also nursing people, all right? So New Mexico and Colorado were tuberculosis sanctuaries. People were being sent here for treatment, and especially to the mountains. And a lot of these people made their way to Georgetown and to Hotel de Paris. So Louis is aware of this. There are many books in the Dupuy Library dealing with health issues, with lungs and tuberculosis, so he's very well versed in this. And so this is a German professor, scientist, and inventor, Baron von Liebig, and he did von Liebig's reduced meat. And so we would think of it as bouillon today, but it was being marketed not only for flavoring, but for invalids, to make a soup that was high in protein. And so he kept this on hand, and so he was nursing people. Here's some great ads. Unfortunately, none of the Liebig jars have survived to present day, but 40 pounds of meat reduced down to that 1 jar. So this is very potent stuff. And all the marketing is talking about gaining strength and invalids. Gordon and Dilworth, we just saw the ad for that. Again, this brand identity. And they're selling calf's foot jelly. Doesn't that sound delicious? Okay, are you going to put that on toast? No. It can be treated as a dessert. And it is, its roots go back to Jewish cooking, but it's also, again, for invalids. It was something easy to digest, high in protein, and so it was nutritious for the sick. And so this is a surviving bottle of calf's feet jelly that we have here. Here we go. And then a lot of the beverages that he's serving. So you're probably familiar with his wine cellar. It's one of the finest wine cellars, arguably in the world. Wines from California, France, Spain, Hungary. But he's also selling a lot of soft drinks, partially because of mining, because the groundwater would be polluted from things like arsenic and heavy metals, but also these were treatments. So the ginger ale bottles that you see here, Jamaican ginger for nausea, inflammation. These are 2 mineral water bottles, this one from Pueblo, Colorado, and a remedy for liver, constipation, vertigo. And then this is probably my favorite, the Congress water. We have probably about 8 or 10 bottles that have never been opened. They're lying on their sides to keep the corks wet so they don't evaporate. But they're for things like torpid liver, scrofulous taints. I had to look that one up. I know, it sounds naughty. Insomnia, rheumatism, eczema, etc. Now, I will suggest that if anybody wants to start a band, I see 2 great band names up here. Torpid liver and definitely scrofulous taints. Scrofulous taints, it was not what I thought it would be. It deals with tuberculosis and irritation in the neck and the throat. Yeah, okay. Oops, let's go back. And then he was also mixing medicines, bitters in particular. So on that inventory that's going through, you'll see orange bitters and cherry bitters. And I was like, well, what do they treat? Orange bitters is for the stomach. Cherry bitters, the lungs. Again, back to tuberculosis, okay? The way he would mix it is he would put some seltzer water into a little cordial glass, and then a few dashes of the bitters for your treatment, and that was given to you. So again, he is treating people. Okay, phone's out. Here come the recipes. All right, so here's our bottle of unopened celery salt. So luckily on Google Books, when you pull up the Fanny Farmer cookbook, it's searchable. And so everything that we had on hand or on the inventory or in the menu, I was able to search for and find out how is he using these items. And so celery salt, he was using in oyster soup. Well, that makes sense. Oyster soup is on the menu, the celery salt is still on the shelf. And then creamed oysters as well. Okay, when the phone goes down, there we go. Chili sauce. For years, I could not figure out what this label said because it's partial. You can see it's been rubbed off. A lot of it is missing. And then when I went to the inventory, light bulb moment, it's chili sauce. So he was buying it again, so pre-prepped food, but if you wanted to make your own, here's Fanny Farmer's recipe. Chicken curry. You saw curried oysters on the menu, and we know that he's a fan of turkeys. We do not have this canister, unfortunately. This is from another National Trust site. This is from the Tenement Museum. They found this there. But I would just about bet that this is what Louis was using because of that brand loyalty that he exhibits. And again, another London reference. All right? Broiling, roasting, healthy ways to cook. Yeah, grouse. Oyster soup. And I was struck by how few ingredients. It's not that complicated, really. And this is true of all the recipes, I feel that way. Macaroni soup. This was sort of a fun one to learn about. I don't know the brand of his macaroni, but this was such a great ad because look what it says, meat from wheat. So here we are again with protein. Building strength, building muscle, getting healthy, putting weight on. So he is cooking not only for pleasure, but for health. Oops, sorry. Oops. Deviled bones, never heard of it. But a lot of people ask about our walnut ketchup. And so this is, again, a Cross and Blackwell product from London. And so this could be a way that he was using it. And remember our Liam Perrin's Worcestershire sauce. There it is. And mustard, we know that he likes that flavor. And a lot of the recipes also have cayenne, so he likes a little kick, a little spice. Pea soup is in the menu. Again, pretty simple. Game salad. So this has never been opened, folks. This is actually lime juice up to this level with some sort of murky thing floating towards the bottom. I have no idea. It's sort of gray and fuzzy. I don't think it's an animal. It might be part of a lime. I don't know. But of course, you think about seafood, fish and citrus, and we know about the trout and the salmon. But this seems like something that he would do too with this lime juice. And again, so healthy. And then we talked about the mother sauces, the 5 mother sauces. These are some secondary sauces that you'll see. So he used mayonnaise. He would make mayonnaise. He would make tartar sauce, white sauce, cream sauces. If he didn't make chow chow, he bought chow chow. And again, Cross and Blackwell from London. Does everybody know what chow chow is? Okay. It's a very southern thing. I moved here from Atlanta, and you could go to any rural gas station, and some local lady would have chow chow for sale, canned by herself, and it's just very fresh vegetables, pickled, and so you could use it as a relish, and so that's what he's doing. Again, pickled items for preservation. Oops, sorry. So yeah, smaller compound sauces. So I call them secondary, but smaller compound would be more correct. So Béarnaise sauce. And then I had to look up sauce Robert. You'll see that on the menu, on his menu. And here again, mustard. And there's that Espanol, one of the mother sauces that he's doing. And then Creole sauce. So we saw the Tabasco earlier, so he likes some southern flavor. And there's the Gordon and Dilworth brand. And our lovely bottle of French capers, and you'll see it in the ad right there. There's the bottle. And there it is at the hotel. And so we know he's serving mutton, and so he's serving it with a caper sauce. Welsh rabbit or rarebit, Lee and Perrins. Oops, sorry. Welsh rarebits right there. This is an item that's less expensive on his menu. This is geared towards locals. Anybody not know what rarebit is? It's just beer cheese over toast, okay? And it's delicious and hearty and inexpensive. Zephyrettes. Does anybody know what that is? I do not. Zephyrettes. Probably Toast Points. You think so? Yeah. And then not only was he known for his food and his wine cellar, he was known for his coffee. So this is how he makes coffee. He takes a sugar cube and then he soaks it in Benedictine cognac. This is the abbey where the monks would make Benedictine in Normandy. So this is again that life influence. He's from Normandy, France. He's carrying this knowledge with him. And so we know he used chastened Sanborn coffee, which is still made today. The flavor he liked was Java mocha. It sounds like it would be chocolate, but it's not. He had Havelin china from Limoges, France. These are called breakfast cups. They're very large with a nice big saucer on which he would put a sugar wafer, the flavors, coconut, and chocolate. The broiling of steaks, again, healthy cooking or grilling as we would call it today. And then, I know you've been waiting for this slide, broiled pig's feet, fried pig's feet, sausages, ham, and this was his brand of baked beans. Unfortunately, we don't have this box, but we do have the receipt, so we know that this was his brand. So the baked beans were to go with things like ham, okay? Pork. So in summary, Louis Dupuy was a master cook, an expert butcher, who offered a world-class food and drink experience. By 1875, Louis was known as the best cook in the Colorado Territory, and in 1896, labeled the father of domestic science in America by Dr. James Russell. You saw him on one of the first slides, of Columbia University. Louis Dupuy was a contemporary of Rosa Lewis of the Cavendish Hotel in London, England, and Auguste Escoffier of the Ritz Hotel, Paris, France. We know that Louis Dupuy practiced scientific cookery and treated people with food and medicine to improve their health. That sets him apart from Rosa and Auguste. In the 1980s, May D&F department store leveraged its restaurant Denver Louis based on Louis Dupuy's name recognition. And I know some of you have been to it. Yes. I closed in 93. And then Louis Dupuy is not currently a household name, although he could be considered one of the world's first celebrity chefs. All right? Now, I gave you the recipes. I owe you one thing. Do you remember what it is? The contest. So, oops. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Let's see. There we go. If you want further reading or watching, these are the three things that I put at the top of my list. Fanny's Last Supper, Fanny Farmer. This is a great documentary that I saw on PBS, and they do a 10-course meal out of the Fanny Farmer cookbook with no modern techniques. Everything is done just like they would have done in 1896. Fantastic video. Look for it. The Duchess of Duke Street, if that rings a bell, it's a PBS series. That's about Rosa Lewis. All right? And then The Road to Wellville. Excellent novel and a wonderful comedy movie. And it is about the competition between Kellogg's and Post. And it is hilarious and horrifying at the same time because not everybody survives. It was an experimental time, all right? They're trying to do the right thing, but they're feeling their way through. All right. Now, this is the setup for the contest. About 3 years ago, we found this shopping list of Louis. It was tucked away in a book, and so he was using it as a bookmark. And so there are different things on there like quail, frog saddles, that would be this. There are jackrabbits and hare on there. So it's a lot of things that may not be to modern tastes. Selling a lot of rabbit here though. So I'm using this example for our example. So this is our shopping list tonight. So I scored myself earlier, and I have eaten 22 things off of this list. And so I would consider myself at this point a somewhat adventurous eater. I think there are about 48 items here, so I'm almost halfway there. Some things I'll never go back to, some things I'll have to really think about. But I have some work to do. So this is the honor system, okay? So I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I want you to score yourselves, okay? So go ahead, take a look. I've had 22 of these items, including rattlesnake. I've eaten rattlesnake. Well, they can be. Paul wouldn't have. Paul's had sea urchin.
It's uni. I had it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, so it's been about a minute. Has everybody had enough time to score themselves? Okay. So I'm sort of in the middle. Okay? So raise your hand if you have more than 22. Ooh. Okay, adventurous eaters. Okay, so we're going to set you folks to the side for a minute. How many of you have the opposite of that? How many of you scored really low? How many did you have?
I'm proud of it.
4. Okay. How many did you have? 2. Okay. Anybody tie with her at 2, or is there a 1?
Because all that stuff is like,
Okay. Okay. Well, here's the twist.
Anybody want to come to our house for dinner?
Here's the twist. Those of you who scored high, you're not going to win. Because I'm here to help you become an adventurous eater. Okay? So our winner tonight is Mary Smith. Now wait. I didn't tell you exactly what the gift certificate was for, but I will now. The gift certificate is for Rocky Mountain oysters. You got it. At Silverbrick. So congratulations. This is for you. Okay? And so I'm at the end of my time. And so I will entertain any questions if anybody has any questions. I'll do the best I can. Yes, Bill.
How do you compensate for altitude?
Compensation for altitude?
By boiling?
Right. Again, we have no recipes. And the thing is, Rosa Lewis also did not use written recipes. So this was not unusual for this caliber of person. I think it speaks to their training, their experience, and their talent. Louis was a baker. We know he made baguettes. We know that he made pancakes. We saw the flop griddle. And we know that before the hotel was in that space, it was a bakery called Delmonico Bakery, and they had fresh bread by 6 a.m. So I think that people of this level could anticipate those things. But again, we don't have anything written to show us that. There was a fire at the hotel in 1942 in the annex building, the auxiliary building behind the kitchen. And we suspect that Louis' journals, photographs, clothing, personal effects were all lost in that fire. And so there are many things that we'll just never know. And that's why I had to speculate somewhat, and why I settled on Fanny Farmer, because she's the most likely source for these recipes. And they would be just either exactly the same or a shade different. Okay?
was the Kellogg person you mentioned that's established the cereal company?
Yes. So Kellogg's was invented as health food. Dr. Kellogg invented granola. Louis ate granola. We have his receipts for granola. So we know that he's reading Kellogg. We also, our washing machine, the Cyclone washer, was from Battle Creek, Michigan, where Kellogg's sanitarium was. And so the sanitarium was for the treatment of people who were ill and wanted to improve their health. And Kellogg was experimenting with low-level voltage. He was running electrical current through people's bodies in order to solve health issues, sometimes with success, other times he killed people. So that's why The Road to Wellville is so interesting. Yeah, and if you're a fan of Matthew Broderick, he's the star in it. It's a very, very funny but weird film. It's great, and the book is even better. Okay, any other questions?
The Zephyret is a cracker and it refers to Fanny Farmer's cookbook.
Oh, see, there you go. Can you say it louder? A Zephyret is a cracker and it refers back to Fanny Farmer's cookbook. So there you go. Okay. Anything else before we close it down? Yes?
How many assistants would he use?
Very good question. So Louis actually trained another cook there. So Louis' parents were innkeepers. So the assumption is that he grows up in an environment around food and drink with an appreciation and an understanding for that. He later becomes an apprentice cook, I think, in Paris, but I think it was probably at Café de la Paix, which is a hotel and restaurant. Still there, still operating. It's near L'Opéra. There are only 3 hotels and restaurants in Paris when Louis was there, so that really narrows it down. But I think Hotel de la Paix just calls out to me. I think that's where he was. So he had some formal training. When he comes to Georgetown, I know that in 1880 he was training a young man as an apprentice cook coming up under Louis. His name was Armandus Joseph Raymond. He later goes into business with Joe, a mining business, but he's raising up Armandus Joe in order to stand in for Louis when Louis is not available. When Louis goes to the ranch in Grand County, he might be away for 2 weeks. He doesn't want to close his business down because, you close it and you have no money. And so he stays open and the food is exactly the same because Joe trained under Louis. Joe also lived in the hotel with Louis and with Sophie. In 1880, we know that the three of them occupied the rooms above the hotel. And so the hotel rooms were not available at that moment because Joe was in a room, Louis was in a room, Sophie was in a room. So the staff was living upstairs in 1880. Okay? Yes, Betsy.
President Grant?
Yes. And so the famous people, President Grant, arguably the most famous person post-term and before 1885 when he dies. And so he spent $89 on liquor and lodging, according to the Denver Post. And at that point, what we call the west wing of the hotel, where the gift shop is and the sample rooms, we feel that he would have stayed in the 4 rooms there above because those would have been new or fairly new, the most modern, the nicest. And so we think he stayed in the 1882 edition. The other famous people, Mrs. General Tom Thumb, who was a little person touring with P.T. Barnum. She was here, of course, because of vaudeville and the 3 opera houses that were operating in Georgetown. Christina Nielsen, who was a Swedish opera singer and a contemporary of Jenny Lind. And so if you've seen The Greatest Showman and that Jenny Lind number that I cannot get enough of, she was a contemporary of hers. Count de Brazza, he was an explorer through the Congo. He and his wife came to Silver Plume and then came and stayed and ate at Hotel de Paris. A lot of titled Europeans, counts and countesses, and also politicians, governors, senators, and then common folks, the locals. So Louis operated on the American plan, which is different than the European plan. The European plan would be a private dining room just for the guests. That cuts out all locals and any overflow from other hotels that might not have restaurants. So he does the American plan, so it's a public dining room so anybody can come in, and that's why he has the wide variety of food and prices. Okay, something for everyone. He was a socialist, so part of his politics are reflected in that menu, I think, too. All right, yes?
Would he be open year-round?
He was, yes. We have the 1881 through 1883 guest register. It is owned by History Colorado, but we have a loan agreement with them, so it stays on site. We turn the page every few days to have the current date showing, and it's open year-round. Open year-round. All right. Yes?
Why Hotel de Paris, not Hotel de Dupuy?
Oh, that came up in my interview back in March of 2010. I choose to say Hotel de Paris because that's how I found locals said it. My predecessor lived in Denver. He never bonded with the locals, and I was determined to live in Georgetown and bond with the locals, and now I am a local. And so I say Paris because locals do. The colonial dames do say Perry.
Not me.
Anything else?
Ron Neely called it the Hot El Paris.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, yes, Paul?
Did you ever study French?
So people ask me, what period of history, did I focus on in school? Well, I am going to be honest with you. History was my worst subject. Okay? I was an English literature major and a French minor, both of which have served me very well at Hotel de Paris because of translating a lot of Louis' letters. I can read them. I know what's going on. And, of course, the literature, it was classical studies, and so that's been very helpful. The learning from the food, about the food, again, I said marry a cook, so I didn't need to know about food for a very long time. But Paul helped me discover that really the advantage that Hotel de Paris has as a house museum is its culinary history. That sets us apart. And so I've been trying very hard to raise Louis' profile, and this is part of it tonight, is letting you know that how important he was. And I'm determined to make him a household name, to stand beside Rosa and Auguste. It's 14 years in, and I feel like I'm making a little bit of progress. Tonight is one step in that journey. Okay. All right. Well, yes, Betsy.
Will you write a book?
I'm working on a book. Okay, but I will tell you, it is an historical fiction. And so, again, because we don't know everything, there are theories I want to test in this. And the working title of the book is called Cook of the Mount. And it starts in 1959 with the premiere of the television series Hotel de Paris on CBS, a Western adventure series based on Louis Dupuy's reinvention in the West. And it bounces back and forth in time between the Burkholder era, which would be the 20th century story, and the 19th century Louis Dupuy era. We largely ignore the Burkholders, and they are a fascinating part of the story. So I'm hoping once that book is finished, we can have a tour called Life After Louis, and we just concentrate on 1900 to 1954 when it becomes a museum. So I know some of you know about the Burkholders, and Christine, I'm gesturing towards her because she has sent me things dealing with them. But they're a very colorful family. I don't think they meant to be, but there were a couple of love triangles. There was a baby out of wedlock, an accidental pregnancy and a baby out of wedlock. There was a lover's spat and a shooting. And so these are stories that we don't get to at this point, but we will at some time. And the other thing is, and Christine, again, thank you for the opportunity. She suggested that I do this. We're hoping to sort of package this up, and this could be a specialty tour, I think. And so hopefully maybe even as soon as this year we could start doing a culinary tour, and it would be based on what you just saw tonight. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.